Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan, from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. More about them a little bit later on. Just a fair warning, I am as sick as a dog, and it just shows my dedication to you. And I want to thank Another Maker for being on here with me so we can do our end of the year wrap-up. How are you, Another Maker?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm good. I'm glad you're great, because today I'm feeling a bit better. But yesterday, I was not doing well at all.
Yeah, you don't sound great.
No. Well, I may have like the radio voice. Not sure. But we're going with it.
Cool. You've got the radio voice. I've got the radio face. We're all set.
Oh, come on. So, yeah, I probably got the human malware from visiting the wife's family in Northern Ontario. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah, fellowshipping with people is just overrated.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so I want to get the big stuff out of the way because I don't know how long I'm going to last. So first things first, do you want to know what we promised to work on this year?
I do. It's been killing me. I can't remember what it is.
All right, so for me, I still had to do a Node-RED project. That was still that's a carryover from years ago now. 12 tutorial videos with an article. Also have to do that. And then the last thing is try to make my channel more important. Trying to just overall feel more important. And I think on that one I actually succeeded because, I had Unity reach out and send a whole bunch of gear. I experimented with a couple new video types, one of which being the AI video, which we can chat about a little bit later. And so, yeah, I would say 1 out of 3, I have succeeded.
And I would say, you can't leave out the podcast. Not me, but you've had some other really good guests, and I've really enjoyed listening to them, and I think that adds importance to your channel as well. So I agree, you got that one.
Sweet. Now, for you, you've actually completed 2 out of 3 coming into this year. So,
okay,
learning a new code type and making a project. You've already done this. Taking an average of 1 day off a week. You did this last year. I don't know if that still counts for this year, though.
I did do that this year.
There we go. And the big one for this year is you wanted to end the year physically and mentally healthier. So you wanted to work out more, walk more, stand more, sort of spend less time at the computer. Did you, Another Maker, achieve this?
I would say about half and half. I definitely worked less, which I would say that most of my physical, issues have come from just the sheer number of hours that I've worked every year. Basically, every year my business doubled from year over year since I started the company. And I intentionally took a step back. I cut out one of my decent sized clients and everything. So I worked about 30% less. So I would say from a stress level perspective, yes. Working out, I would say I worked out more this year than last year. Not as much as I want to, especially the long distance riding and things like that. But I would say yes. I'm not trying to be too easy on myself, but I would say yes overall.
There we go. And so it's good news that you've actually got that accomplished, because we forgot to set a sort of like a punishment for our bet. We didn't actually decide what we were going to do. And so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to donate. So last year I donated, I was on the hook to donate $100 to the food bank in Ottawa here. And then you said you would donate as well. I ended up donating $200 because $100 Canadian to American. I didn't want to do the conversion, so I just donated $200. So I think today I'm going to donate another $200 to the food bank, because I don't believe anybody should go hungry. That's just my opinion.
I'll match you on that also. I'll do to the I've kind of become fond of a charity up there in Brampton, Ontario. So I will do same thing, the school lunch program up there in Brampton, Ontario.
So same one as last year then.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, Ottawa Food Bank and Brampton, Ontario Food Bank. You guys are getting. Well, I'm gonna send $200 Canadian. So feel free to do the conversion on that if you need to. What's that, like $100 American?
I don't know, somewhere in that range. We'll make sure it happens though.
So okay, that's out of the way. Do you have anything for this year? Do you feel like
Ooh,
you need to do something this year? And I can go first, if you want, if you need to think about it.
sure.
All right. So the number one thing for me is I want to try to structure my YouTube channel a little bit. There's often times where I'm sort of sitting at my workspace down here, and I've got work to do because, like, when you're self-employed, the work is never over. Like, there's no like finished, right? As
Right.
soon as you finish a video, you're on to the next one. So I think I want to do something like where I purposely take one day off per week of YouTube and work, like just taking
Okay.
time off, but also possibly book in one day of a week of just working on YouTube. All I have to do is progress my YouTube for that one day, and then I would consider that a success. So those two things. So try to step back a little bit, and hopefully that means that I get more stuff done. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Seems fair.
So I'm not necessarily lowering the amount of hours. I'm just structuring it more so I don't end up sort of procrastinating until I have a mental crash, essentially.
All right.
So that would be mine this year. And again, I'll put up $200 for the food bank if I don't make it.
All right. I will I'll do another health one, except I'll be more specific. I want to get back to the point where where I can do and actually do, and I'm going to really try for 100, but I'm going to do an 80-mile bike ride in one day, obviously, this year. I think my record's like 112 in a day or something like that, 118 in a day, but I'm not there right now, but I'd like to do an 80-mile bike ride sometime before the end of the year.
Now, give me an idea how long an 80-mile bike ride lasts. Like, what's your average speed? And are you going to be doing this in hot, humid Florida?
It depends on the day. Yeah, I'll definitely be doing Florida, I'm guessing, but I'm guessing 5 to 6 hours. It depends on the day, how you're feeling. I mean, I've done 100 in, I think 6, a little over 6. Yeah, so it just depends on the day, but somewhere in that range.
That's pretty insane, though. 6-hour bike ride. That's continuous riding.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you even like bring enough water to last you?
So the trails that I usually ride on, the place I ride on, I can usually refill. I do usually on something like that, I'll bring 3 of the sort of taller squeeze bottles. I think they're like 24 ounces, and then I keep 2 or 3 bottles in my actual bag. So I mean, I have enough water to do it, but I generally drink a bottle of water about every 10 miles. So I would need to stop somewhere along the way. But it's crazy. One of the things about that is, especially in the summer, I did when I rode my bike across America, I don't remember ever peeing on the side of the road. Like you sweat out everything you drink. So yeah, you don't have to stop for that at least.
Yeah, I've heard that before. A friend of mine is a PhD candidate, or I guess he's got his PhD now, but his girlfriend was working on her PhD, and they spent all day sort of like collecting bugs in like a swamp. And it was like 40 degrees Celsius that day. And that's what she said too. She drank probably somewhere around like 6 or 7 liters and just sweated it all out, like no peeing all day, which is insane.
I do prefer the heat. There's just something about me that I ride better in 95 degrees. I just do. I don't know what it is. It's just, I tend to ride better in those temperatures. So we'll see.
I can't even survive in those temperatures. I can't even go out of the house in those temperatures.
Yeah, no, that's it. I don't like to walk from my house to my office in those temperatures, but I'll go out there. If I'm supposed to sweat, I'm good with it.
And just for the audience listening at home, I'm going to paint a word picture for you. It's like 18C in my basement right now, and I am in a flop sweat. That's how sick I am.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yesterday was very bad. We planned on doing this podcast yesterday, and actually, to be honest, I was going to schedule a live stream too, and I just thought it'd be hilarious to be sick as a friggin' dog and be on live stream. But it turns out, like, when I get really sick, I like fall into like delirium. Like I start like hallucinating and stuff. So that was yesterday. Would not have been a good time. So I really appreciate you, accommodating my schedule for being sick.
No worries. And I have one of those jobs. I mean, obviously I could have a broken leg and I could have 2 broken legs and sit here and do my job. But when I had COVID, I was so sick, so delirious that I could not code. And that's about the only type of sickness I could have that would prevent me from doing my job. But I couldn't, just did not have the brain power to do it.
Yeah, and I just, I wanted to soldier on because I have not missed a single release of the podcast. I think, let me just check real quick what episode this will be. I usually do this ahead of time, but, I'm sick. So this will be episode 114, so 114 episodes in a row. Never missing a single one, never doing a clip show. It's just always been.
It's impressive, and I've enjoyed them too, for the most part. I'm just kidding. I've enjoyed all of them. They're great. So I do want to ask you, so you talked about your channel being more important this year, but how do you feel about it? How do you feel about the direction, the trajectory, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff? We haven't talked YouTube in a while.
Well, I think I am optimistic about the direction of the channel. I feel like I'm falling into a groove where I can pick up an item, make a reasonable video, and get, 2 out of 10 from my last 10 videos. But I'm also at the point where I can make experimental things like that AI video, which we can talk about, where not only did I sort of use AI for the coding project, I thought it would be cool to use AI for most of the video. And so it's being received really well right now. It has 100% likes. And I'll just give you a little bit of inside baseball. The thumbnail is AI, all free. I didn't pay for any AI for the whole video. So the thumbnail is AI. The project is AI. The intro speech is AI. The photos inside was AI. I don't know if you caught it, but I put your display picture. I changed your display picture for your YouTube channel, and that's AI as well.
I didn't actually notice that.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I asked ChatGPT to give me a Florida Electronics Man photo, and I used that as to replace your.
Yep. Okay. And how many views? I don't want to click on it and make noise now. How many views did that one get?
So it's almost at 900 so far, which is pretty good because I know it's going to be slow on the uptake because I've only been posting podcasts essentially. But this video, and the editing on it is tight. Everything is like, it took something like 2 hours to export because of all the all of the like the effects I added on and the zoom ins and all this stuff. So I probably have 40 hours editing in just that video.
Oh.
And it's doing just as well. And I assume it's going to pick up a little bit, in the new year when people start watching stuff again. But, I just know my YouTube channel, because of all the podcasts that I post, stuff is a little bit slow uptake. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about, well, I got a couple questions for you. So how did you feel about using AI for coding? And I know that you're one of those people who are you're very gun shy when it comes to coding, and what you learned from that video. Did it give you the encouragement to tackle other projects that you might not have tried to tackle 2 years ago?
Oh, 100%. I would totally use AI to code again. The only problem is, because I was doing it for a YouTube video and I wanted to get it done, I didn't take the steps that I would normally take. Like after it spat out the code, I didn't ask it to explain the code. So there's some things that my wife took a look at and she's like, oh yeah, so it's making a string of HTML or something, and then it keeps adding to the string. It like loops through and adds to the string. And I'm like, sure. I believe you.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I made a comment on that video that makes me, and I've been thinking about it a lot since I've seen that video. I think really they talk about AI coming and taking our jobs and stuff like that. And I mean, that's probably true for a lot of things, but I do think I think it sort of democratizes and turns every man, woman into a coder. And it pushes the coding job more to project management. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Like the fact is, there is a limited amount of context that AI can swallow up, and not even just for the for your free plan, but just the amount of electricity that it takes to, if you want to upload your million lines of code and have it understand the whole context, there's just a limited number of tokens that it can keep an eye on to understand big picture stuff. So I really do think that coding jobs moving forward are going to be more for people who are managing the projects. And on the other hand, all these things are accessible. And you talked about Node-RED, and I might have mentioned this before, but you can actually have it spit out Node-RED nodes. So you can just tell it, hey, I want to do this in Node-RED, and it'll give you this big string of JSON that you can just import, and you'll get all your little wires will be connected and everything. It's wild. Like, it's amazing. And I think it's going to be a pro in the fact that you're going to be able to do things with microcontrollers that you wouldn't have dreamed of 2 years ago. It's going to be a con for exactly what you said. You're not going to know why it works. But in the end, it's going to work. And I think that's pretty impressive.
It is very impressive. And one thing too, I would say is, I don't know how professional code happens. Like, what's the format of professional code? But I do feel like code is going to become more modular because AI has a hard time spitting out giant sections of code and have it work. I feel like every individual thing will be handled by a small snippet of code where AI can just easily go and iterate on that. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel like it's got to be.
I do. And I haven't talked about, I've got a small part of my company does AI stuff, and that's exactly what I do. Most of what my, I'll just call them modules. What my modules do are basically 50 to 100 lines of Python or whatever language is best for what I'm doing. And that's the actual other interesting part is I don't care what language it is. Sometimes it's in C, sometimes it's in Python, sometimes it's PHP. It doesn't matter. I have it modularize these individual tasks, and I created a way for them all to work together. And that's it, because the AI itself can't understand the big context. So you just break it down into small steps and let it rip.
Do you have a favorite AI online that you use, or are you just kind of still using Claude?
It goes back and forth. I always call it Claude, so I don't know. I always use Claude for kind of first pass, and then the GPT-401 or GPT-01 I use for some of the real complicated things. And I'm really on the fence with buying the $200 a month one. It's really justifiable in my line of work. If you can save your client an hour's worth of time, it pays for the month. So it's one of those things where it's becoming almost worth paying $200 a month for it. It's that good.
So I did get corrected in my comments. They're like, it's called Claude, like Claude rather than Claude. But
yeah,
Claude is a French name, and in French it's Claude.
It's pronounced. Yeah, so exactly.
Whatever. It is what it is. And someone answered. They said Claude, like CLAWED. I think that's what you're getting at, is closer to the English pronunciation, and Claude is closer to French. That's exactly what I was saying. So there we go.
Yeah.
But I've been actually using Perplexity a lot more. Harry, now I mispronounced his last name on the video.
Laguna. Yeah.
Wiguna, yeah. My bad. My bad, Harry. Sorry. But he recommended it, and I love it because it has sources. It shows you the sources.
Yeah.
It literally will give me a couple of links that I can go and double check. Now, a lot of those links are YouTube links, so I'm kind of not a fan of that so much, because I would rather, Control F the text I'm looking for. But,
right.
I mean, it's pretty damn good. So I've been liking Perplexity a lot.
And ChatGPT started doing that also, giving the sources on it. And I think Gemini used to do it. I finally got away from Gemini, but yeah.
It's incredible how much free resources we have while we're still in like this sort of like gold rush of AI.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be like that forever. It can't be. But my only hope is that by the time they turn the taps off, local AIs will be good enough to handle pretty much anything we need.
Yeah, they're not there yet, but they're getting amazingly close. That's actually one thing I was thinking. If you ever wanted to redo that video again, doing it with all offline ones would be the next step. You wouldn't get as good of results, but you'd probably get fairly close.
So I've been playing because you recommended GPT for All, which is it's a client, and then you download the LLMs onto your computer, and then you run local GPT. And then you also recommended, let's see if there's a tooltip here, LM Studio. Yeah, that's the other one. And I've been playing with their uncensored models just to see like what gives. And some of it is really good, some of it not so much. So I think there is a little bit of value in going to, chatgpt.com and just having a model that's ready to go.
Right.
But I do have a little bit of an issue with the censorship stuff, because some of the stuff, like for example, I got when a Copilot ended up on my computer, I tried my best to break it because you installed it, right? It's not, I didn't install it, you installed it, and so I got it to say the N-word a couple times. But then it erases right away. And sometimes like innocently, like when you, like, for example, I asked it, one of the first CDs I've ever bought was Dr. Dre's 2001.
Yeah.
And I asked it to give me like a list of the songs on that CD. And because the N-word is in the title of a couple of those songs, it types it all out and then erases it and says, I can't help you. But it's like, that is culturally fine. It is fine to read the title, maybe not out loud. I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable with this, but it is culturally fine to have the N-word in the title of a song. You'll find it on YouTube, but Copilot refuses to post it. So that's why it's a little bit weird, right?
Just a quick interruption to talk about this episode's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay has been a long-term sponsor of the channel, and I think they're a good match for my channel because they provide quality PCBs for a reasonable price. You can get boards manufactured up to 100 mils by 100 mils for just $5, including shipping to Canada, $15 US, including shipping to USA, $12 US, which is incredibly cheap for professionally manufactured PCBs. I can personally attest to the quality of these PCBs, and so if you want a circuit immortalized forever, check out PCBWay.com with the link in the description. Now back to the conversation.
Yeah, and the election stuff and all the other things have shown us I don't mind censorship, to remove hurtful things or whatever, but then, it never stops there. It always winds up going one political bent or another, and it's not healthy. And, I'm smart enough to be able to censor stuff in my mind and realize that, the word you said is offensive. I can get over that, on my own. So I do prefer that. Then the other angle is, when I do work for certain people, I obviously can't go pasting their code in ChatGPT. And so having my own GPT that runs offline on my own 4090 that can just, process whatever I want. That computer doesn't have access to the internet, all those things. There's value in it for that purpose too.
100%. And that's another thing I made sure to cover in my video is do not put sensitive stuff in an LLM. Do not.
Right.
Simply do not. Even if you're running it locally, you really have to trust the client that you're running as well.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, that's AI stuff. Do you find that it's working just fine, the offline stuff, or do you have to massage it a little bit more to get what you want out of it?
Yeah, it's not going to do the more advanced things that some of the other ones do. So if you give it a really complicated problem, it's going to die, not do as good of a job. Usually doesn't have as big of a context window. It's a little slower. It's inferior almost across the board. But a lot of times I use AI for more things like refactoring things and cleaning up some code and stuff like that. Because most of the things that I do aren't things that get done every day. So, I'm trying 75 things to get something to work. And then when it does, I just want to clean it up and streamline it, get rid of all my weird comments, get rid of all this stuff and, get rid of some of my repetitive code and let's condense this down. That's where it's good to use it.
Hold on a sec. I was just reading. Oh yeah. So there is something you did want to talk about as well on this podcast. You wanted to answer a comment that someone asked how you got into rapid prototyping. And so I don't know if you want to tell that story now.
Yeah, sure. I just did a video. I've been trying to balance the amount of time I've spent making videos, and I've been making about one every 4 months or something like that. I do have one in the queue, which is pretty amazing. But I made a video about just DuPont wires. Now, I basically been trying to make videos that I think people would actually want to watch. For a while, I sort of had this attitude that, hey, it's my channel. I make things for me. If you want to watch it, watch it. If you don't, don't. And people didn't. That's fair. I get that. I don't have like a big community of any one thing, but I did a DuPont wire video, which has gotten, I think, 1,500 views or something so far. It's like, it's fine. Like and I think over time that'll grow. But I mentioned here and I mentioned other places that I do rapid prototyping, and I don't think I've ever really totally defined that. And then people are constantly asking me how I get into it, how I support this stuff. And I just thought I'd kind of give a high level overview. I started with Arduino back in 2017, just kind of learning as I was learning how to code in general, and then started YouTube not too much longer after that, a couple years after that. But when I left Alaska, end of 2018, I came back and started my company for reals. And a year later, a little over a year later, the pandemic hits, and basically everybody that I was doing work for shut down. So my general company at the time, I was running servers for the lotteries over in Europe, and all the places that sold lottery tickets in Europe shut down. Therefore, they didn't need the lottery servers. That income just all went away immediately. But what was really fortunate is that somebody reached out to me. They were in the trade show industry. And so everybody's kind of scrambling to see, all right, all these trade shows in Las Vegas are shut down. Is there anything that we can do to make this stuff move on? And so basically we came up with a system, and I sort of designed this wrapper for a system that made these 3D virtual experiences. And so we started making these virtual 3D trade shows, and companies started figuring out, hey, we were spending $5 million on our booth at this trade show. We could do this virtual trade show for a tiny fraction of the cost, and then we'll have it year round, and we can use it as a tool for our thing. So, I made just dozens of these virtual trade shows for big companies and all that kind of stuff. And then as the companies went back into doing physical trade shows, they were still updating those things. And I was kind of in contact with them. And it just sort of came out that I was somebody who did some electronics on YouTube, and I would do, some electronics. And so these people were basically coming to me last minute, like SEMA or the CES show or something like that, saying, hey, our vendor couldn't do what they said they were going to do. We need something like yesterday to make X, Y, and Z happen. So it could be an LED controller. It could be, one time I did a video game cartridge for somebody. It could be that to basically all the electronics for an entire booth, anywhere in between. They started sending me these just rapid prototyping jobs. And so a lot of stuff I do is for the trade shows. And so people ask about like long-term support and stuff like that. Essentially, once the trade show's done, it gets thrown out. So, the only thing I have to do is make it, and it has to work long enough to ship out to Las Vegas and work for a week. And then the other side of what I do is I write software for factory automation and things like that. So I design the hardware that interacts with my own software, or with software that people are interested in buying. And so I'm able to develop this hardware in-house. And then it's kind of nice on their front because I support both the hardware and the software together. So I do a little bit of both those things. And then occasionally just somebody contacts me through YouTube and says, I need this custom hardware thing. I did a bunch of shooting galleries and all kinds of weird stuff like that. But it's a very... so people who want to get into the business, I wouldn't really recommend it. It's kind of a high stress, not as high profit as software, thing that I do for my customers. But it's a relatively small part of my business overall. But that's just kind of hard to explain in a YouTube comment.
Yeah, I was just about to say that you keep telling me you don't want to be in the hardware game, but you keep getting pulled in, right?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, if a Fortune 500 company that you're already doing some work for comes to you and asks you to do, to build an elevator simulator for their CES booths, you generally do it. And if nothing else, you do it for the resume. You do it so that you can slap their logo on the bottom of your resume saying that you built something for this company. And that's really cool. Like I've got stickers all over my office of the companies that I've done stuff for. And I mean, just huge numbers of the Fortune 500, Fortune 100, doing an AI project for one of the biggest entities in the world right now. And just, it's really, that part's really fun and probably worth more to me than the actual money of doing some of those things. But what I don't want to do is build some retro console that I ship that every time a chip goes bad, I've got to take it back and warranty it. That I don't want to do. So for the most part, what I do, if it's for a company it's going to be produced, I develop the original one so that you can prove, yes, this works, and then you go get it manufactured, warranted somewhere else.
Are you at liberty to talk about the debacle with the persistence of vision LEDs?
Sure. Yeah. This is one of those things where I won't name the company, but a company you interact with every single day contacted me wanting me to make all the electronics for their CES booth. And so if you picture a network, and what they basically wanted were LEDs that were moving, so if you picture like pulses of LEDs going one way and going another direction, and they wanted to simulate data flowing all over the place in basically a giant booth. And so I kept asking them, like, give me the script, so that I can start working on what in the world is we're trying to accomplish. And basically I was in Australia and they shipped a whole bunch of stuff to my door. I got home and there was just piles and piles of boxes of equipment. And they weren't the LEDs that we were planning on getting. And it was just kind of a mess of stuff. But the absolute most maddening thing about it, if you've ever seen, and maybe you can put a picture in the description somewhere, but if you've ever seen one of these things that like you said, persistence of vision, they have these things that are basically like an LED strip on the end of a stick. And if you spin it around, it can make patterns and all kinds of stuff. But essentially, as these LEDs flicker, your eyes perceive them as they move, almost like they're static. You might do a better job of describing what's going on with the POV stuff. But
yeah, basically it's like a fan, and you can have like the time show up on the one of the blades of the fan, but it looks like just a clock essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like a clock, even though if the fan is stopped, there's just 10 LEDs in a row in one single strip. So what happened was they had me do this thing where if you picture the size of a room with network wires going all about it, they want to have pulses like, hey, we've got pulses of data flowing this way and pulses of data flowing that way, and doing all kinds of things and simulating different floors of a building and all that kind of stuff. So what happened was the LEDs that they sent me had just enough flicker that if you would have, let's say you have one strip going forward and another strip going backwards, when they were both going at the same time, if there was like any kind of LED light in the room, it would mess with your vision to make them go the opposite direction of what they were supposed to go. So in other words, the LEDs are really going forward and going backwards, but the flickers of the other LEDs in the room would make it look like they were going the wrong direction. And it could just change arbitrarily. So essentially, I mean, it was absolutely maddening to try to come up with some kind of pulse that would not be affected by the other LEDs in the room. And even when you had more LEDs turn on in the display, the microcontroller would slow down just a little bit from the extra load of having to calculate which LED should be on, that it would make the LEDs look like they were going reverse. So even though you're lighting up LED 1, 3, 5, 7, it would look like you were doing 7, 5, 3, 1. And it was insane. And it about broke me. That package, my wife called the UPS store and asked them to hold the truck the last day so that we could pay to overnight it. It was like $500 and some just to ship the LEDs that I needed out there to Las Vegas. I mean, we were that close. Like, we were holding up the UPS truck to get those out to Vegas.
And just to be clear, this was like dozens of feet of LEDs, right?
Hundreds
of feet. Yeah. So you had to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you. I mean, you couldn't disclose anything because it was all like hush hush. But I do remember you saying you were like probably the most stressed you've ever been.
Yeah, and I had just gotten back from Australia. I was 2 weeks in Australia and New Zealand, so I flew back jet lag, and then basically worked the next 7 days, including 48 hours without sleep, to get that out the door, holding the UPS truck. Like that's how close that one came. And I'll never do that again. But it was a job.
Hopefully you charge them enough.
Nah, not enough.
Never enough.
I did charge by the hour, which is good, but not enough.
No, you need to charge by the job because you got it done all in like 48 hours, right?
Yeah. It was a week, but yeah, including 48 hours straight to get the final thing done.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So what they sent me, just to give you like a concept, what they sent me originally was going to be enough that a single Arduino Mega could do it. And by the time I was done, I wound up having to use an ESP32 on every single strip, which again, fortunately, this is why I have this much stuff in my office. But it wound up requiring an ESP32 per strip and a whole network and all kinds of other stuff to make it work. But it became a lot. It was a lot bigger than they originally sold it as.
I mean, at that point, you might as well run a thin client and
right.
You know, but Windows is not really real time, right? So
right.
You'd have to run Linux.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
But I will say most of them work out really well. And I said it in the video, but it's not uncommon for people to come to me and say, hey, I need this, and get it out the door the same day. Now it might be, like I showed in my DuPont video, it might be a case that doesn't quite match the Arduino that I crammed it in. There might be hot glue all over it. I might be using proto board and duct tape, but it'll get out the door and it'll work. So it's kind of a fun challenge once a month.
Like a lot of my videos, like I have a lot of ambition, right? But a lot of my videos end up, on the wayside because I hit one snag and then it becomes too much of a pain to work around it. And then I just move on to the next video.
Yeah.
So like, just for example, I bought a whole bunch of Fluke multimeters, cheap ones, and I wanted to do a shootout with them. But I just checked and I uploaded the video to my YouTube channel on January 11th of last year, or of 2024, this year. And I haven't released that video because I can't think of a good thumbnail. And so, like, literally, the video is like in the trash, or it's like on the side, because I can't figure out one aspect of it. Because, to take an image of 4 multimeters, that's fairly large, and to have good separation from background, you want to shoot from close, but all my backgrounds here are too busy, and, like, this type of shit happens all the time. I probably start about twice as many videos as I publish.
Yeah, I record an unbelievable amount of stuff that I don't even bother getting to the point of editing. And for the same reason. But with my own real job, I don't really have that luxury. Like if I take on the project, I've got to get it out the door. So that's always an interesting thing.
Yeah, thankfully you've got the skills for that. But what happens if you don't? Like, have you ever gotten to a point where you were way over your head and had to hire someone's expertise?
I don't think so. No, honestly, which is kind of crazy because I'm not very skilled. As far as electronics, of all my electronics friends, I'm definitely the least skilled, but it gets out there. And I do think I make up for skill with just persistence. I'm really persistent to the point that I'll probably drive myself crazy one day. But so I have to offset the skill with persistence.
I think I would disagree with you're not very skilled. I think what you are very skilled at is coding. And with a microcontroller, you can kind of like sort of like skip the electronics phase by coding. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like if you instead of using gates, you can just use a micro, for example.
Yeah. And well, that is the thing. I mean, that's the reason why I can justify all my mailbag purchases, because I keep enough stuff on here that if I can't do it the first 5 ways that I was going to do it, I'll find a different way. I just have options, and that does help, being able to work those things out. So actually, kind of going along these lines, I have an idea that I'll answer mine first because you're a big part of it. What skill have you learned in 2024? Have you increased your knowledge in that has been beneficial to you? And I'll go ahead and start with mine. Again, because you've got a big part of it, is PCB design. You tried to teach me like a year and a half, 2 years ago, how to design a PCB in KiCad, and it didn't quite take the first time, but I still ask you questions all the time. But I would say that the learning KiCad in the last year and a half has been one of the most fun things that I've done in my life. Not fun things, but you know what I mean? Like one of the most enriching things I've done. In your ads for PCBWay on here, you always talk about immortalizing your design in a PCB. And for me, that has been very, very cool because PCBWay sponsored me and I did 100% of my videos from their shared projects. Like I just got PCBs that were on PCBWay shared projects and, ordered them for free and got them delivered, built them up and sent PCBWay the bill for it. But learning how to do it myself and making my own projects has been really, really rewarding. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to find out like what you've learned in the last year.
I think for me, it's more like I think I've just gone more in depth in CAD work. So I'll give you an example here. It was, let's say, a week and a half before Christmas, and I have no idea what to get my family, what to get my wife's family. They're all adults who kind of have their own stuff, and they just buy whatever they need. So it's really hard to sort of figure out what to get someone that kind of has everything they need. And plus, like, I'm kind of like the tech kind of guy. So, for my wife's family, I was debating buying a mini PC and then making a retro gaming system. But just like scraping all the titles and stuff to make it look professional, it takes forever, especially if you don't want to pay. But then I ended up, and I think you told me it was really easy to do. I think it was you years and years ago. I ended up making lithophanes for everyone. And I think the big thing is that I am so skilled at CAD now that I don't think there's anything I can't do. Like, I don't think there's any project CAD-wise that I would be like, no, I can't do this. So the lithophanes, like I was printing prototypes. I was designing my own LED. Actually, this is going to become a project in the new year. But essentially, I have these 3-watt LEDs, and I designed a case for them that exposes the heatsink, uses a USB micro input, and stuff like that. And it ended up not becoming what I used simply because it was like it was getting a little bit hot. I didn't want to use a DC-DC converter and leave it in some normie's house for it to burn down. So I ended up just ordering stuff on like lights on Amazon, and then I had to redesign the holder, and that took all of 5 minutes. And then I did I guess I shut down Fusion wrongly one day, and it lost my design. So I was like, okay, I'll just remake the design. And like 10 minutes later, I have like a remade another design. So I think for me, my strength, like the stuff that I've practiced in 2024, mostly by accident, is CAD work. There's like, it's a weird thing to say because I don't like building myself up. Like I just feel like it's a little egotistical, but I don't think there's anything in CAD that I couldn't design if I wanted to.
That's awesome. That is on my skills list. I bought a book, which I never buy books, but I bought one from another YouTuber. And I am trying to get better at CAD because I am horrific at CAD. So I definitely am impressed by your CAD, and I would like to step mine up to be 10% as good as you are. All I want to do is build decent enclosure for stuff. That's all I care about. And I suck at it, but I want to get better.
That's the easiest part. Like rectilinear things is like the easiest thing. It's when you start adding curves and then you have to make projections to cut things through. That's more complicated. But yeah, cases, easy mode. And in fact, this year, I think I'm committing to learning FreeCAD because the new FreeCAD just came out. And
people love it.
Yeah, because apparently it works more like Fusion, which is all I've been asking from the beginning. Like, don't make me like put, if I want a square, don't make me put like down like 4 lines and then have to define each corner of it. I just want to put a goddamn square and whatever, wherever the line ends up, that's where the definition is. Like, I don't need to manually define everything. And apparently it works like that. I haven't tried it yet. I've been busy doing the lithophanes. But
Yeah,
essentially,
I haven't heard anything bad about it. Everybody says that they took some of the best stuff from Fusion and put it in FreeCAD, and they seem to love it.
so I can't wait to try it. I love the offline aspect, the fact that it's open source. It's all my jam. So I think this year the plan is going to be to learn it and to make videos on it, and hopefully it can replace Fusion, because honestly, Fusion just works the way my brain works, but I'm getting really close to having to buy a license, and it's $1,000. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
have
nuts.
$1,000.
Yeah, no,
You
that's
know what I
nuts.
mean? I paid
Well,
just
if you'd start doing your New Year's resolutions, you'd have all that money you're donating to the food bank back.
no, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm just kidding.
I feel like I would even donate
I'm just
no
kidding.
matter what. But yeah, that's the thing. Open source stuff. It's like the number one reason I would love to learn to code is to be able to contribute to open source software, but I feel like I need to get to a point where I wouldn't break things more than I'd fix things,
Yeah, I actually prefer, I'll say this, as somebody who runs an open source project, there's things called pull requests where you can just go into GitHub and put how you would change the code. And I hate that. Most developers love it. I freaking hate it because I have to go through all the code and try to figure out why you did what you did. I would much rather you just fill out a bug report, tell me what you think is wrong, and let me do a correction, because I would say 95% of the time when people submit a code thing to me, they're wrong. And so it's just way easier for them to tell me what it is they're trying to accomplish and let me do it than to have them actually contribute code.
I have to tell you, I don't even know how GitHub works. But like this whole thing, like some people like, oh yeah, I think there's a pull request on one of my projects, and I don't know how to deal with it. Like I have no idea.
So as somebody, I do 95% of my code, probably 99% of my coding solo. So for me, GitHub is basically just a backup / version control thing. And whenever I work with a bunch of other people, I screw some things up royally. Like sometimes it's easier to just delete the whole repository and copy the files back in than to type in all the commands it takes to fix that stupid thing. Like GitHub can save your butt and ruin your butt. And when you're learning, it's easily 50-50 on which one it's going to do when you hit enter. Like it's unbelievable.
Coding, man. There's so much to learn. Like it's not just the coding, but it's all the support around it, right?
It is.
All of that stuff. Well,
if you've got a file over 100 megabytes, you might as well just reformat your hard drive and call it a day. It's just terrible.
You got anything else to add before I'm probably going to pass out from heat exhaustion here?
No, nothing major. I just appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the listeners putting up with me again.
I appreciate everyone dealing with me being sick, but don't forget, I'm doing this for you guys. This is not just for me. I guess I do get paid by PCBWay to do it, but at the same time, I would rather be sleeping right now. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Is there anything we have to look forward to on your YouTube channel in the coming year, or you're just kind of approaching it as things happen?
I keep telling myself bangers only. I'm only going to do a video if I think there's the least interest in it. My next video isn't quite that way, but I take one of those $3,000 Hotronix heat presses and rip all the guts out of it and replace it with an $80, or no, not $80, $20 smoker controller. And it's amazing. I wish I would have done it 2 years ago. I don't know that it'll get a ton of views, but I think the people who watch it will be pretty, if they have one of those presses, will be pretty appreciative of me saving them hundreds of dollars. So hopefully Hotronix isn't a litigious company, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm all for replacing the electronics out of stuff. Like, a lot of auto manufacturers are doing like heated seats as a subscription
as a
now.
service. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. So this Hotronix heat press, my first heat press that I had, one of these 16 by 19 or 16 by 20 things, it had a dial. Like all it needs is a dial. You need to set a temperature. That's all a heat press needs to do. And this thing has, I think the two boards in the front are $600. The platen of the heat press is $400. The other sensors, probably add up to $150 or whatever. And if you buy them and it's not, they try to tell you what part it is, but they clearly told me if I order this part and it doesn't fix it, that I don't get my money back. And so they're like mechanics. They're like, we're going to just throw a part at it. And if it works, it works. And it's an hour to rip the machine apart. And, this smoker controller that I found does everything I need to do. It handles 30 amps. The heat press is only 15. It does all the temperature setting. I can adjust my swing down to the degree of how much, the heat can vary and all that kind of stuff. Does everything I need to do. It's an industrial controller, $18, and my wife is thrilled. So yeah.
So yeah, if I had the money, I would get one of those BMWs, and I would show how easy it is to hack in.
Yeah.
Because like, if all the wiring's there, essentially there's a MOSFET on the body control module that's deactivated. So all you have to do is you have to get the just take the wires, like de-pin it from the connector, put it into a relay, and then you use the OEM switch, and you just have that activate the relay through a simple circuit. Like we do relay activation all the time.
Right.
And then that's it.
Do you think that's going to be considered illegal to do it?
Might be, but try and stop me.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how are you going to prove, unless it catches on fire, how are you going to prove that I did it? Because if you de-pin the connector, you can then go and rip it out and repin it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, a heated seat is just a heated element, and most of them have PTC thermistors to regulate the heat. They don't PWM. Well, they do PWM for like the low and the high setting or whatever, low, medium, high. But high is just full on all the time. And there's a PTC thermistor to stop the seat catching fire, essentially.
I know like the electron, I know you're trying to go, but the electronics on cars is really scary to me right now, because my wife had a low pressure on one of her tires on her Telluride, and there were 7 warning lights on the dashboard warning you of low pressure in one tire. Like when you looked all over the place, you were seeing 7 different warnings. And I can't imagine what's going to happen in 12 years when 3 sensors go bad. I mean, the thing's going to look like a Christmas tree.
So I will have to say that mechanically, cars are better today because they have the electronics to protect them. So essentially,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So essentially, your like engines, they last a lot longer because of those warning lights, right? They go into like a limp mode, which is a very safe, slightly rich fueling condition. And yeah, essentially, your old Chev would probably, start knocking a piston until it blew up. Whereas the new ones are like, unable to retard timing, bring it to the shop type thing.
Right.
So I think
they can't retard the timing because so many of them have plastic cam phasers and stuff like that too. But, I'm more concerned about you bump something and you lose a sensor up front, lose a parking sensor up front, and all of a sudden your car is beeping nonstop. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there.
So that's very true as well. That's true. So the convenience things become inconvenient when they start going wrong. That's for sure. But I mean, it all comes from somewhere too, right? Like even here in Canada, starting, I think it's 2025, every car has to be equipped with auto headlights because people don't turn on their headlights in inclement weather.
Yeah.
And the TPMS things, that's a law in the States because people were not checking their tire pressures. And so you need a, $1,000 system to replace a $1 tire gauge.
Yeah.
So it's a bit sad, but it is what it is.
And it is amazing tech. I mean, my wife's car is nuts to driving that thing. It's fantastic, especially compared to my 2010 Ford. So, it's amazing tech.
Yeah, the Telluride is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, she has the 2024. It's a sweet ride. It really is.
Must be nice, huh? Someone's walking around with everything.
She is. I drive a 2010 Ford 1-ton van. So
I don't know how you can daily drive that. It's so stiff.
I don't. Yeah, especially empty. It's bad empty. But I don't drive that much. I take my bike to the trail, go to the gym in the morning. That's about it. So other than that, I'm hauling something.
Yeah, this year, if my finances allow, because I spend so much time in the car now, driving to work sites, because my mechanic's job is mobile, I am going to be looking for a Lexus, like a 2010-ish Lexus
Nice.
RX 350, something like that.
Okay, I like this.
Because I'm done with Volvo for now. And like, just to add to the pain in the butt from getting sick, but the drive was so long that it hurt my back because the seats are not comfortable in this new V50. And then I was sleeping on a foreign bed, right, for a couple nights, which didn't help my back. And then the drive back, and then we had to shovel when we got here. So everything happened all at once. So I'm done. I need to spend a little bit of money and get a comfortable car so I don't hurt myself, because I'm getting to that age.
Getting old sucks, doesn't it?
It does. It 100% does.
Yeah, it's bad.
Well, I guess that's it then. I want to thank you so much for joining me on the end of the year podcast, as is tradition. And
thanks for having me.
I'm definitely going to send, probably as soon as we're done here, I'm going to send $200 to the food bank. And then hopefully next year, we've got it all written down. You got to do your 80-mile bike ride, and I have to do a more regimented schedule for YouTube. And then hopefully the food bank will get money just because, not because we failed at our tasks.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening. I'll catch you guys in the next one.